blows across the 40, stays on his feet, cuts it back. Marion Brown, another kickoff return for a touchdown.
Look out! There goes two! No flags! Touchdown!
Howard in trouble!
Incomplete! And the Michigan Wolverines will shock the college football world.
Time coming off. Howard's going to run for it. Time runs out. And that'll do it. Oh, my goodness. Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon. They storm the field at Austin. He handed it off to Love, who stays on his feet. Love is in the end zone. Notre Dame has won the Orange Bowl, and Marcus Freeman is taking them to the championship game.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Week Zero podcast, where it is just now me and Josh. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, it was me and Ryan. Ryan is not here. Everyone else has shit going on, but happy Easter as well.
It's Easter Sunday. People are out, with family and stuff like that. And I actually just got home. About 20 minutes ago.
20 family members were here. Now it's down to like 7, but that's how it is.
Yep.
So
he is risen. Christ is King.
How was your Easter? Real quick.
Fantastic. Food was fantastic. People may not know this, but my wife is half Palestinian, so I get all the good like Middle Eastern foods at holidays. It's fantastic.
There you go. Yeah, we had ham, we had lamb, and filet mignon.
Yep, we also had lamb, and we had hashwa, which is ground beef and rice with different spices and stuff mixed in, and we had grape leaves, which if someone understands what that is, I forget the name for it, but it's essentially hashwa rolled into grape leaves. So they're these little rolls of grape leaves. They're fantastic.
Nice.
They brought those out, I was happy.
I also got sunburned because I was outside. I played about 15 games of spike ball. That is literally the most amount of physical exercise I've done in probably a year or two, and I literally feel sore all over. I'm not a very fit person, so
that's all right. My little brother, he's trying out for baseball as a freshman next year in high school, and so we were out throwing baseball around and stuff like that. My arm's gonna be sore.
Yeah, no, I'm already at the point where I was walking along the beach yesterday. I'm up in Connecticut. I literally went to skip a rock and my shoulder hurt after skipping one rock. Like I might not look it, but I am 30. Like I'm unfortunately now that I'm 30, everything hurts.
Yeah, so, everything does hurt. Getting old sucks.
Yeah, but, unfortunately.
So
we were not sure if we might do I guess we were supposed to talk about a Notre Dame QB battle, but Ryan's not here, so fuck that. So the big news is, of course, Nico. How you say his name to UCLA? I don't know how much money he got.
Iamaleav-In.
You mean
Iamaleav-In?
But so he has finally gone to UCLA. I don't think he got as much money as he wanted.
It appears not.
I mean, my initial reaction is I just feel bad for Tennessee going from making the playoff and possibly being a contender if he had stayed, just by him staying, to now, I don't even know if they have to now try and reset. I wouldn't even expect them to be considered a top SEC contender now just by losing him.
They're going to be – so Tennessee's probably going to be fine. As far as quarterback play,
I don't think they'll make the playoff again.
I didn't think they were going to make the playoff this year anyways, but
even if
as far as like getting there, it wasn't Nico's play that got them to the playoff.
That's fair.
He
was good enough to.
Yes, he wasn't a fantastic quarterback at Tennessee. Like he was. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, he's good enough to win them games, but they lose at Arkansas. If they had someone who's like, I bet if they had, Hendon Hooker, they don't lose at Arkansas, right? if they had any of Josh Heupel's other quarterbacks. They don't. There's some games that they lost this past season that they probably would have won. But as far as it goes for Nico and because it's not like he just transferred, right? Because that's not.
This
really
this is a big deal.
This was a huge deal. This was one of those things that we were afraid was going to happen.
He literally became an actual free agent and he literally did an actual true holdout. Like he's practicing for when he makes the NFL, maybe as a first round pick, and he's going to hold out training camp waiting to get a contract. Like this is exactly what that is. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So what do we know? We know that the Friday before we knew that he was reaching out to other teams before he left. Okay. The Friday before where they had team meetings and stuff like that.
He doesn't show up.
He doesn't show up for team meetings. And this was the Friday before his spring game was supposed to happen. So he doesn't show up to team meetings. And then the news breaks Friday afternoon that he is
leaving,
no longer with they're not going to negotiate with him. It comes out that he if I remember reading the tweet that came out, it almost read exactly like how a player and a team right in the NFL or like in any professional league will write it when both sides agree to just like release the player. It was written exactly like that. It read exactly like, oh, we're just going to let him, we've decided to part ways, right? And he's not, and the student part of it is very questionable, but he is a student athlete, right? Yes.
Students should come before that, right? And at least
it should, but
it's never gonna. But like,
not in this case.
Really just read as exactly like that. Like, oh, it was it was exactly like that. So I'm just gonna put it like this. I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. That works better.
I know it was looking weird.
So the number was $4 million that came out that he was asking for. Whether that was the actual number or not, we don't really know.
And of course, he was being linked to North Carolina. It seems like North Carolina now, as long as Belichick's there, he's going to be North Carolina is always going to be linked to like every major like
quarterback transfer.
Like there's Jaden Rashada from Georgia. He's been linked to North Carolina now that he's entered the portal. It's
and this what's unique about the Nico thing, because we've seen so far in the transfer portal era and the NIL, we've seen players go to different schools because of coaches. We've seen players go to different schools because their coach left and went somewhere else. We've seen players go to different schools because they were
blocked and couldn't start.
Well, yeah, they couldn't start and they wanted to go somewhere where they wanted to start. All of those things are understandable. Where we mostly saw NIL affect these schools was not necessarily from the transfer portal. It was more for recruits. So recruiting and stuff was a big thing for NIL. What we're seeing here with the Nico situation is
he's a starter.
Yeah, he's already successful. He was gonna start. He was making $2.6 million a year. So, and that's one thing that I don't quite understand. And I'll call it as it is. I saw it as absolute greed, asking for more money.
Oh yeah,
because one, is $2.6 million a year not enough? And two, there's only so much money you can make, and just steak still tastes like steak. That's kind of how I say it. Your steak's not going to taste better because you made an extra $1 million that year. Your car's not going to drive better because you made an extra $1 million that year. You know what I mean?
I mean, I seriously wonder if it's like one of those things where, obviously he probably, thinks he's good enough to make the NFL and be a starting quarterback. But it could be like, there's always, this draft that's about to happen, there'll probably be 10 plus quarterbacks that will be taken in the course of the draft, right? Very few are actually going to be successful, right? maybe even though he's only a freshman, maybe he was hearing that rumblings of, oh, he's not a first round talent or something. They still think he's like a lower round talent, and so he thinks that this is his way to try and get money, like really kind of secure the bag before he gets drafted, and like he misses out on
really kind of secure himself financially. And I understand that, but he really took a step backwards here, because if the
in terms of program, in terms of
UCLA,
possible success, I think in terms of the program, the actual possible success he has, because like
I think all three aspects. So you have in coaching, I think he took a step backwards. In the program, I think he took a step backwards, and in his NIL, he took a step backwards.
Well, and then you could also say he took a step back in terms of like possible conference, in terms of like where the program. I know you said the program, but like where the program actually stood within its conference.
Yes.
Right. Like if this is him going to USC, right? That's way different than.
Oh yeah, because that's not a drop off in coaching.
No.
In my opinion, I feel like Lincoln Riley is. I feel like Heupel's actually a little bit less than a Lincoln Riley. Heupel might be a better overall coach, but Lincoln Riley is a better quarterback.
Heupel, I think if you look at it, he's definitely he's been more successful. I mean, he's made a playoff. Well, Lincoln Riley has 2 with Oklahoma, but Heupel's definitely shown to be able to do more with less. And that's and being able to, have a quarterback be successful like that is definitely a good sign.
For sure. But really here, I think that this was, and like you said, either he was looking to try to make his money now versus money he could make in the league, or if I think, I think he may have gotten a little greedy here and kind of overestimated what he could get.
Overestimated both his abilities and the fact he did it now when programs are already
like pretty much
already this is like they said the portal opened, but I feel like we already knew a bunch of transfers were going to happen. Like this was after all the main transfers already happened, right? If he had just announced at the very beginning,
like after the bowl.
Yeah, after the bowl game, he's going to transfer. Yeah. After the playoff, right? If he wanted to, then he would have had everything lined up. He probably would have made that what he wanted, right? Mm-hmm. But he waited, and it hurt him.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what made him transfer out of Tennessee. I'm not.
Other than the supposed money,
firsthand.
That was the only reason, or if there was something else going on.
Yeah, there might have been something going on. Because I know he's come out and said publicly, well, it was a coaching style, right? And he thinks he could do better with this other coach. Well, that's not what we heard when you went into the portal. But if that was the case, maybe he just didn't like how Heupel was working him, or he didn't think he could succeed in that system that he has, then
who's the head coach of? It's not Chip Kelly, because Chip Kelly is Ohio State's offensive coordinator now, so it's not Chip Kelly who's UCLA's head coach. Who is it? I don't even know.
Yeah, right.
Is it like isn't it like something Cox or something Wilcox?
Deshaun Foster.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, anything else you feel you need to?
Is this not his? Okay, so this will be Coach Foster's second year with the Bruins.
Yeah, they did last year. They weren't good, were they?
No, they weren't. But they also lost their quarterback to Oregon, I think.
Oh, Moore.
Yeah, Moore. Yeah.
Right. I forgot about that.
Right. Yeah.
I completely forgot about that.
Yep.
Is there anything else you feel we need to say about Nico? Or I think just the final thing really is I hope this is not a sign of things to come.
And
That's what you hope.
let me help you out with that. I don't think it is.
Do you think it's just a one-off?
Because if it was a sign of good things to come, then Nico would have landed at a premier program and gotten the money he asked.
Yeah.
For, right? And he didn't. He landed at not even the best team in the city. But he landed at a program that I personally despise. But I'm just a UCLA hater. That's just me. I have my reasons. I will go through them at another point.
Ad nauseum some other time.
Ad nauseum some other time. We'll set a timer or something. But I think that what this does to any other player who's looking to try to do the same thing that Nico did, try to get more money through the portal,
makes them think twice about
it. What it does to them is they'll be a little apprehensive about it, because what if I end up somewhere that's worse with less money?
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is exactly what I think happened with Nico. Now, he might ball out next year. Who knows, right? But
he balls out and he looks like a genius all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, and then it looks like it worked, which good for him. But I mean, just from like a money standpoint, it's a bad idea. From a coaching standpoint, it doesn't look like a good idea right now. And then from a publicity standpoint, it looks awful.
Yeah.
And so what I think about this going as poorly as it could have for Nico, I think this actually works for the betterment of the game, because you won't have guys going to the portal for just money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not going to be just for like, oh, I make it 2.6 here. I feel like I'm worth $4 million. Well, reality check, you're worth 1.5. And that looks like $800K after California taxes. So I'm sorry, buddy. That's a major downgrade. However, it's different strokes for different folks. He is back on the West Coast. That's where he played high school. I believe he was a California high school player. So,
yeah,
he's kind of back home.
Yeah,
that's so. There's the upgrade, but
okay,
man.
So
I don't think this is a trend that'll happen. No. At least not for a couple more years.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing, and then we'll kind of decide if we want to keep going or not. Oh God, that's my foot fell asleep. I apologize. There's been a bunch of rule changes. The NFL or the NCAA has done. They finally have done something about trying to curtail players faking injuries, try and slow down the offense, trying to get a free timeout. So, under the new rule, if emergency personnel enter the field to evaluate an injured player after the ball is spotted by the officiating crew for the next play, that player's team will be charged a timeout. If the team doesn't have any timeouts remaining, a 5-yard delay of game penalty would be assessed. So, pretty much as soon as someone comes out, it's timeout, right? You're not gonna get the free timeout from that team. So this is gonna be a way to, if a team's driving or dominating, and you get that, it's gonna kind of curtail that, which is always nice. So it's always nice to at least see something kind of good. That's always definitely an annoyance seeing that in games. I feel like I feel like I haven't seen it that much in recent years, but maybe that's just me.
It was pretty bad in the SEC.
Okay.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. The other thing is, that's kind of major, but there's a bunch of others. A few that you'll remember. So they've also approved referees will only say a call in the field is upheld or overturned. The terms confirmed and stands will no longer be used. So upheld
or overturned.
Upheld or overturned. So you'll never hear stands, which then obviously means when we hear
stands, we couldn't tell. Is what it means. The call on the field is what it is.
Exactly. We're just saying upheld. That way instead of us knowing what that actually means, instead of us being like, oh, so they just couldn't overturn it because there wasn't enough evidence. It's just, that way there's no confusion or any question of whether they got it right or wrong, I guess.
So what I'm hearing is what they're doing is they're making it a more positive, more affirming word to use.
Yeah,
so
upheld or overturned.
Upheld means more than just stands is called.
Yeah.
Okay.
If any, there's a bunch of other ones. If any player on a kickoff return team makes a T signal with his arms, the team gives up the right. Any player. So if that means if you see one of the guys who's not catching the ball do this, even if he's not catching it, it's automatically a dead ball.
So fair catch automatically.
So if someone, because you used to see this where sometimes someone would do this and then they return it. Once you see this by anybody, it just immediately.
This was, I don't know if you remember, Iowa had a game a couple years ago. They had a punt return touchdown called back because of an arm signal done by the person who.
You're talking about the Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean.
That would have won the game 2 years ago. You're talking about, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it was like they thought it was
who didn't watch the game.
They thought he went like this when he literally went like this to tell him to back away. So
he was telling his teammates to back away as he caught the ball.
Yeah.
And so the referees.
But I guess this is kickoff return, so this is not punt. So
but it's the same kind of I guess spirit of rule. And so so if you guys remember Iowa 2 years ago, offense was non-existent. They fired their offensive coordinator.
It was their defense and literally their special teams actually that scored them points.
Yeah, and actually, if you remember, there were like 2 or 3 guys who would show up to games and they would just have like shirts that say punt on them, and they would celebrate punts. That's how awful their offense was.
The fans?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, they just go crazy, but. And that's what that reminds me of is the Cooper DeJean. So get away from me, catch the ball, return it for a touchdown, and then they call it back. They said he called a fair catch.
Yeah. So do you also remember it's one of the worst games I've ever seen in terms of the Georgia Tech game last year that went into like 4 overtimes, right?
Yes.
And so they have now changed the rules regarding overtime rules. If a game reaches a third overtime, each team will have just one timeout, beginning with the third OT until someone wins. Because that game infamously and super annoyingly, that this is what everyone hated about this game.
Timeout every OT.
Once it was that Kirby Smart was calling timeout every single time, whether he's on offense or defense. I can't remember. I think it was probably when they were on offense. He was always calling timeout. And it was just wasting more time. And everyone was getting really pissed about it. So
that's why the game lasted an extra 2 hours.
Pretty much. So now you only have one timeout the entire time. So it could go to 9 OTs, like that Penn State Illinois game, and you only have one timeout. So you can't keep calling timeout to.
You know what this tells me?
You can't do it every time. That because obviously if it's third down and you need to stop a touchdown from tying. Right, they're going to line up. You call a timeout to see what they looked like, to what they lined up for, and then it all changes. So that's good.
Absolutely. So what that tells me is like coaches, once they hit that third OT, they're going to burn that timeout.
You think they're just going to burn it right away?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Because it's overtime. If you can burn a timeout and get your stuff together and score, do it.
Yeah. Because obviously at that point you're just alternating the 2-point attempts.
Yeah.
But I still don't think anyone thought that you would still see games with you. Everyone thought from doing the 2-point attempts that once you get to third OT, it would just be go to 3 OTs, not that game where it went to 4 or 5, that Georgia Tech game, or the Penn State Illinois that went to 9.
Yeah.
A few years ago, like no one
That's just like. Do you remember this was a long time ago, about 3 or 4 years, LSU, Texas A&M?
Yeah, 7. Yep.
The 7 OT game. Man, that was amazing.
That game had more points scored in OT than in regulation. I think it was 20. It was like 26 or 28 all in OT, and it finished 74-72.
I feel like that's more entertaining than these 2-point conversions.
I'd rather watch the regular start from the 25 and keep doing that because I feel like that's a lot more strategic the entire time.
Oh, for sure.
And sure, like you can have it where it's stat pen, but everyone would prefer that over these. And then and I think what's even more annoying is it's especially annoying watching a game like that Penn State Illinois game that went to 9 OTs, and neither team offensively can seem to figure out how to do a simple 2-point play. And
it's 2
either
yards.
run the ball or
could not do it.
Like I was watching it in my car, and it's like every play was either the quarterback rolling out to his right and trying to look at and just throwing a desperation throw that didn't go anywhere, or some weird ass play that to the running back that's not just a simple
that lost yardage.
And yeah, exactly, or get stuffed or something, and you're just like, and it's just like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'd rather watch it. I'd rather be more entertained if that was 4th and 2 from the goal line. And they need to get that to actually get a touchdown. Then they would actually try and actually do a good play instead of just basic ass whatever. You know what I mean? Obviously we're couch, Monday Night Quarterback.
And we're not.
I'm sure everyone would agree. They would rather watch the regular OTs from the 25. That's always more entertaining.
Always.
And it's definitely, I think it's also just because we've had so many great games that have had that. Over the years,
for sure.
Boise State, Oklahoma. The what other? I mean, the Texas.
Yeah, LSU, Texas.
LSU. I'm trying to think. Honestly, the Navy Notre Dame when Navy broke their losing streak. That was an OT. That was in like double OT, and then infamously was where Notre Dame, instead of kicking a field goal to, I think, either tie it or win it, or no, to tie it in overtime. No, I can't remember what it was. They forego to kicking a field goal in OT. They went for it, and a player on Navy literally flew and jumped, did a Troy Polamalu, jumped over a lineman as he was trying to block him and sacked the quarterback. I remember watching that with my neighbors who are Notre Dame fans, and they were not happy, and I was so happy because
man.
So.
Yeah. What's the next rule?
There's a bunch of other ones, like no offensive player can be in the direct line of the snap to the potential kicker or within the frame of the snapper on punts for the formation to qualify as a scrimmage kick formation. I don't understand.
Oh, okay. So just preventing snapping it to somebody who's not the kicker.
Yeah, I guess. So you can't I guess you can't have it to where maybe someone comes up from behind or something, or as they're running, they snap it to them.
You could, as long as it's a legal formation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if a player
you would limit who you had in the backfield.
There's literally an actual rule here. It says if a team is not in scrimmage kick formation, it must have 5 players numbered 50 through 79 on the line of scrimmage. So you have to make sure that you have linemen with those numbers if you're not doing that.
Yep.
Let's see. So more stuff about simulating action at the snapper and words or signals that distract opponents when they're preparing to put the ball in play. So any simulation of the count.
So you can't mimic a snap.
Yeah, you can't do that. I guess that's more.
You can't. That was already kind of a rule, but defense had their own snap.
Yeah, that already was a delay of game in the NFL. I guess maybe that was a problem. After the 2-minute warning in each half, if the defense commits a foul with 12 or more players on the field and all players participate in the play, the officials will administer a 5-yard penalty. The offensive team will have the option to reset the game clock back to the time at the start of the play. If the 12th player is attempting to leave the field, right, they're trying to run off and has no influence on the play, the defensive team will be penalized 5 yards with no adjustment to the game clock. So basically, it'd be like if you got charged, if it was if there's less than a minute in the game and a team gets called.
So what Oregon did to Ohio State?
Yeah, I guess that's so. I guess it was so that would just reset the clock for Ohio. So it would have reset the clock for Ohio State.
Yeah, instead of having they had a 10-second runoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead they would get the ball.
Those unfamiliar.
The defense would be recessed. Would have been given 12. Was he running off or was he on the field at that time? I think it was on the field. So
here's what happened. So for those unfamiliar, all right, Oregon beat Ohio State last year
Yeah.
by using this rule. Okay, if the defense within 2 minutes of the game and the end of the game commits a foul, you get, or I believe any foul really, but you get your penalty yardage and a 10-second runoff.
Right, and then waste time and waste clock time.
So that's what they did. They had 12 men on the field for a play, and they could afford to give up 5 yards, and so they did. The flag came out. The play didn't, produce anything like that. But what it did is it took the play clock from I think it was 17 to 6.
Yeah, and then we had the Will Howard running.
Yeah, and then you had Will Howard take off and think that he slid in time to stop the clock, but he slid when it was 0.
Yeah.
So if Will Howard had that extra 10 seconds, Ohio State might win that game.
Because they were in field goal range at that point. The only time
it would have been in field goal range if he slid, but then you have to
they would have to have the president line, just turn up and spike it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was one of those things where Ohio State fans felt cheated, but that's playing by the rules.
Now it's a benefit.
It's a rule exploitation.
But it's a rule exploitation, and I guess they're closing that to where you can't. There's not going to be a 10-second runoff on that specific. And it was 12 men, but it is interesting that it is just that. So theoretically, you could still have the defense commit a foul, on offsides or something like that. And I'm not sure if there'd be a 10-second runoff or something.
I don't know if there would be a 10-second runoff, but that specific type of play, will not produce the same result again.
Yeah. So interesting.
I will
so
say
Ohio
this.
State fans, even after winning the national championship, you guys can be glad that you brought changes to the the NCAA rule book.
Yep.
So that's really it that I've seen. Yeah.
As far as major stuff goes, I guess other stuff is more just procedural.
Well, that's all from this ESPN article that I was reading.
Gotcha.
Coach to player communication will be allowed for teams in the FCS because I was, I guess, not allowed, but it was allowed in the FBS this last year for the first time.
But it wasn't for FCS.
Yeah, so they're just allowing it for the FCS.
Okay.
That's
man, you could really bet that up in every FCS team that played an FBS team this past year. You're like, there's probably some odds in there.
That's a good point because you have a few of those at that time. I really like. I know. Do you watch the UFL? Have you watched it at all?
I haven't been able to watch it yet this year. I know my Battlehawks are doing okay.
So obviously the big thing is you can hear the calls, right?
Oh yeah.
We would love to be able to do. Obviously the NFL. I'm sure they wouldn't want that because they wouldn't want the coaches on the other sideline to have the TV tuned to it or something, right? I'm sure they'd be able to. I'm sure there's a way to make it to where that's only for the people watching. Because I feel like we'd all like to hear that, right? Being able to hear, Sean Payne's infamous long ass calls for his plays for the Broncos. But I would love that for college too. See what similarities there are, what differences there are. So
I feel like you might catch some hot mic moments though.
Oh, absolutely. It'd be hilarious.
Probably would not be okay.
But anyway,
I said.
Exactly. So it's just 30. We're at 35 minutes. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to do a mock draft or no?
I feel like this is pretty sweet right now.
Okay.
I feel like we covered a lot so far, and 35 minutes for two of us. We got 142 people watching. Thank you all for tuning in, by the way. Appreciate you all for tuning in on this Easter Sunday.
Yes. We will be back on Thursday. Definitely guaranteed Thursday.
Yep, to cover the NFL draft.
The NFL draft. So I'm sure you'll be hoping that your Steelers do not draft Shedeur Sanders.
He's a good quarterback. He is. Does he deserve to have his number retired? Fuck no.
I think Travis Hunter probably does because he won the Heisman.
I don't know. I feel like you gotta have
Maybe not right away.
Have some success, right?
Maybe not right away. I feel like for Hunter, but I feel
maybe
like
you wait a little bit, but
he would. I think he would have gotten it for being a Heisman Trophy winner. You know what I mean?
I think Coach Sanders said it best. If Shador's last name was not Sanders, we would not be having this conversation. That's right. We wouldn't be having this conversation
because he also would not be having his jersey being retired because his jersey wouldn't be.
Look, I love Coach Sanders. I do. He does goofy shit like this sometimes, and it makes me like him a little bit less. But I still like him.
Well, right? I know because I know you and I like him because both Lucas and Lucas likes him a little bit, but Ryan just hates him, and it's just
Ryan's more of a hater than I am.
Ryan's Ryan's just a true hater. You're like you appreciate some of the antics, I'm sure.
I have my reasons, UCLA. Your mascot doesn't even exist anymore. Sorry. A little bit came out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, we'll be back on Thursday. We'll be streaming the entire first round. So that's 3.5, 4 hours that we're going to be spending talking about football. Draft starts at, I think, 7 or 8 o'clock. So we'll be there until well past midnight. So that'll be nice and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually,
I won't be there the entire time. I will have to go to work, but I'll be here for as long as I can.
I will be there, but after about halfway through, I'll be playing video games or something at the same time, I'm sure. And just giving my thoughts. Obviously, I'll turn off all my notifications on Twitter so I don't get spoiled because I've hated that in the draft lately.
You could mute. You could.
I mute them. But I'm like Ari or whatever his name is on Twitter. He's for the past 3 years, he's just spoiled every pick. I'm like, why? It's you just do it just to.
Mute him. Oh, hold on.
I've muted him. I've muted Shifter.
Here, Bella.
Bella.
Yeah, everybody. Here's Bella.
She's adorable.
She is 6 months old. She's a Chihuahua Beagle mix, and she's awesome. I love her.
Does she bark?
Yes, she does. Just not a whole lot.
Okay, because I was gonna say it must be because a Chihuahua Beagle mix is very.
You would think, right?
You would think your eardrums would be bleeding by this point, but I guess not.
She's really good.
Gotcha.
She's awesome. Go on.
Cool. So we'll be back on Thursday. They'll definitely, hopefully, all 4, maybe 5. If Phil finally joins us, we'll be there reacting. I'm sure, obviously, we'll be there to see Lucas's reaction when they don't take Cam Ward. That'd be hilarious.
Yes,
he's gonna be so mad if they take Abdul Carter or something or Hunter. Because I remember he first started off. He wanted them to take Hunter and then take Will Howard in the second round. Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted. So we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll be back. Josh, anything else you'd like to say?
Christ is risen. Christ is king.
Okay. Have a good night, guys.